What is up, my friends, and welcome to another edition of the AEW Week in Review. I'm your host, Mark Perry, editor of Pro Wrestling News Hub, covering pro wrestling and not sports entertainment. On this week's show, Kip Sabian is out, plus we get a recap of Dynamite, Dark, and, of course, the latest ratings, which are very interesting, and our fantasy AEW fantasy game. We have all that coming up. So how do you get in touch with the show? Simple, email podcast@prowrestlingnewshub.com with your MP3s or call 888-430-7692 extension 3. Remember, cutoff time is 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. And always leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We really appreciate that. Gets the word out for this show. And of course, like and subscribe to this channel. That is very helpful as well. On this week's show, we got Mr. Fourth Row checking in. We got Salty Sea Dog, reaction to the Kenta Moxley thing going on. But before we get into this week's results, what we want to do, let's look at some news and notes this week. First, we'll start with a little bit of that fantasy wrestling aspect and who is the top guys this week. So this week, Pac, of course, is the number one guy. He had a win on Dark this week and a win on Dynamite. Lee Johnson had the win on Dynamite, and he also appeared on Dark where they lost to SCU, him and Aaron Solow. We'll get into him in a second. So there's where you got two guys that actually got a lot of points this week, and then everybody else who won on Dynamite, guys like Jericho, Cody Rhodes, Darby Allin, and etc. So that's the stats for this week's AEW Fantasy Wrestling, and you can sign up right now. You just go to fantasy.prowrestlingnewshub.com and sign up, and there is one league that needs like one or two more people, and then that league will be off to the races. We're in beta testing. We have 3 leagues going right now, and it seems to be doing pretty good. I think probably within a month, by March, I think the site will be pretty solid and keep adding features weekly. So, on to some just news and notes before we get into the results this week. First up, Kip Sabian is reportedly out of action due to an injury. According to a recent report by Fightful Select, sources within AEW have revealed that Kip Sabian is currently out due to an undisclosed injury. He hasn't competed since Winter is Coming special on Dynamite on December 2nd when he participated in the Diamond Battle Royale. However, he did just get married, so maybe that's why. He's had a TV role, and of course they had the whole wedding ceremony, but you see he didn't really take any big bumps in that. So we'll keep an eye out and see if Kip Sabian is out and if we find out what exactly he's out for. Also, a AEW wrestler revealed that a positive you-know-what test, and it was Danny Limelight, who had worked several matches for the company. He said he tested positive. He took to Twitter to announce his diagnosis. He made his debut for the company during the second night of New Year's Smash, and on nights he teamed with Brian Pillman and Griff Garrison in a loss to Kenny Omega and the Good Brother. Limelight believes that he's the hottest free agent in pro wrestling, but he's on the bench now with his positive test, and that was on February 10th, he made that announcement. Next up, some signing news. We were pretty surprised by this, but I think it's all good. Cody Rhodes revealed that Aaron Solow and Nick Caramonto have signed with, and they're part of the Nightmare family, along with Lee Johnson, but we already knew that prior to this. So congratulations to Aaron Solow and Nick Comoroto, that's what it is. I keep saying it wrong. Congratulations on them signing with the Nightmare family. It'd be interesting. I'm not really sure where this is going to go with the Nightmare family. However, somebody did bring up, I forget where this was, about a potential feud going on about QT Marshall and Lee Johnson. So I think there could be some stuff going on with the Nightmare family going forward, some kind of story angle with them, potentially maybe starting off with the whole Shaquille O'Neal saga that's going to happen in March. All right, so that's the news and notes for this week. Now, let's get into the week that was AEW. Welcome to this week's AEW Dynamite recap for February 10th, 2021. We go through each match, the winners, and grade them, and then we review next week's card and AEW Dark. Get everything you need to know about AEW this week in less than 7 minutes. So let's begin. First up, we start with the TNT Championship match, Darby Allin versus Joey Janela. Winner, Darby Allin. I gave this a B-. I'm a fan of Joey Janela. I kind of am, but I don't know if he really brings it. He's had some good matches. This was an okay match. His time to shine. It was just an okay. I gave it a B-. We get a segment about Jon Moxley talking about tonight's main event match. Then we get a little setup segment with Sammy Guevara and MJF talking backstage, and Sammy punches MJF, and that will have ramifications later on. Then we get Cody Rhodes and Lee Johnson versus Peter Avalon and Cesar Bononi. Bononi looked good. Winner, Cody Rhodes and Lee Johnson. I gave this a C+. This is Lee Johnson's first win in AEW, so they kind of celebrated that. And then Tony Khan announced that Lee Johnson was officially All Elite, but we kind of knew that already. So congratulations to Lee Johnson. C+. This is an okay match. We get the Young Bucks and Good Brothers segment talking about just random stuff. Then we get a Hangman Adam Page talking to Matt Hardy segment, and that will lead to some more stuff down the road as well. Next, we get a Pac versus Ryan Nemeth. Not really sure why this guy is getting this kind of push. Winner, Pac. I gave this a C+. Pac was fine. He just kind of beat him up. And that was it, kind of a squash match. But I'm not sure why this Ryan Nemeth is getting a push. So many other guys have been on Dark, or even just guys that really haven't been used lately that could have done this match, but not really sure why Ryan Nemeth gets the push there. Nothing really to see there. Miro talks about the last week's wedding. I think they just want to end that whole deal. Then we get Chris Jericho and MJF versus The Acclaim, Anthony Bowens and Max Caster. This was actually a decent match. Surprisingly, I'm not a fan of The Acclaim's gimmick. Winner, Chris Jericho and MJF. I gave this a B-. Just not a fan of The Acclaim's gimmick, but actually this had some good spots and was pretty compelling match. This was a decent match. After the match, Sammy Guevara announces he is leaving the Inner Circle. Well, we'll see where this leads. And Sammy comes in through the heel tunnel and leaves out the babyface tunnel. We'll see how this plays out. I think the end should come to the Inner Circle. We can have a better, faction at this point. Then we get a Hangman Adam Page and Matt Hardy segment. They're doing some drinks, and Hangman Page signs some kind of contract while he's drunk. We will see what goes there. We get our weekly Sting, not really interview at all this time. The Sting comes out to talk to Tony Schiavone, and then we see backstage that Team Taz has put Darby Allin in a body bag and drags him across the parking lot, and that ends the segment there. There's your weekly Sting check-in, kind of getting... that was a good segment, but it's kind of getting... Then we get a segment with Kenny Omega on the golf course talking about tonight's match. That was kind of funny. Then we have the singles match, Women's Eliminator Tournament first round, Layla Hirsch versus Thunder Rosa. This was a good match. Winner, Thunder Rosa. I gave this a B-. I thought this match was really good. I'm telling you, the women's division is getting better and better. Thunder Rosa and Layla Hirsch are both good competitors. One of the on the top tier. I think definitely Layla Hirsch is on the top tier women's wrestlers. A couple of messy spots here and there, but overall it was a good match. Gave it a B-. We get a Jungle Boy segment talking to Tony Schiavone about FTR and how they're all mad at each other. We'll see where that one leads. Then we get the big finale, the Falls Count Anywhere match, Kenny Omega and Kenta versus Jon Moxley and Lance Archer. Winner, Kenny Omega and Kenta. I gave this an A-, and this is the elite match of the night. This was a fun match all the way around. They went in the backstage. They went into the kitchen. There was some kind of editing things in there towards the end, which I thought was kind of interesting, but I guess it worked when you can tape and you can speed up the match. But overall, this was a good match, and it really ended AEW Dynamite really well with Kenny Omega and Kenta with the win. The Good Brothers got involved too. We'll see what happens going forward. Card for next week's AEW Dynamite. The big news is Riho returns. So first we got the Women's Eliminator Tournament first round. We'll get Serena Deeb versus Riho. We've heard about this going before, but now we'll get it next week. And the return of Riho, the former AEW Women's Champion. So that will be good. I'm interested to see where this goes. I assume Riho is going to win, but Serena Deeb is great too. Two great women's matches. I wonder if this doesn't get at the end of the card, but they move it up higher. We get another segment where Sting calls out Team Taz for what happened this week with dragging Darby Allin through the parking lot. I'm getting a little with the whole Sting coming out and not really doing much. I don't think he bounces the ratings at all. Then we get a tag match. Hangman Adam Page and Matt Hardy and Private Party versus Hybrid 2 and Chaos Project. I know it's Chaos. I always say Chaos. Whatever there. We know who's going to win that. FTR versus Matt and Mike Sydal. Mike Sydal getting the spot. But again, we haven't seen him before. Why don't they let somebody else, that one of the mid-carders, kind of get in that spot too? Why are they bringing in these just random guys? Then we get a tag team championship match. The Young Bucks versus Santana and Ortiz. This is Santana and Ortiz's chance to shine. If they lose, they'll be out of that top ranking and somebody else could take their place. So that match is going to be a must-see match for next week. All right, let's take a recap of this week's AEW Dark. A lot less matches this week. First up, Natural Nightmares and Nick Caramundo defeated Barry Morales and Jersey Muscle. SCU, Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels defeated Lee Johnson and Aaron Solo. Brian Cage with Hook defeated Jake St. Patrick. Nyla Rose defeated Miranda Elise. Pac defeated VSK. Sonny Kiss defeated Casey Navarro. Tay Conte with Anna Jay defeated Alex Gracia. Ryan Nemeth defeated Marco Stunt. That one, I wasn't sure where it was going to go. I thought maybe Marco would have a chance. Peter Avalon and Cesar Bonani defeated Sean Dean and Charlie Bravo. Preston Vance defeated Baron Black. Red Velvet defeated Diamante. Wasn't sure where that was going to go. And finally, Joey Janela defeated Jack Evans. And there is your results for Dark. Ratings are in for this week's AEW Dynamite for February 10th, 2021, and a report by Showbuzz Daily has AEW finished 21st overall for the night. However, looks can be deceiving because actually AEW was the number 2 non-new show of the night, and we'll get into that in a second. AEW Dynamite drew 741,000 viewers, down from last week's 844,000 viewers. They finished 3rd overall last week. Dynamite was taped this week at Daly's Place in Jacksonville, Florida. The show featured Kenny Omega and Kenta versus Jon Moxley and Lance Archer, which was a great match. NXT drew 558,000 viewers, down from last week's 610,000 viewers. It finished 62nd overall. Last week, they finished 51st. That show featured Timothy Thatcher and Tommaso Ciampa versus the Grizzled Young Veterans. The total combined wrestling audience for both shows was down 1.299 million viewers. It was 1.454 million total viewers last week. Why? Well, of course, based on the ratings, due to the impeachment of the former WWE Hall of Famer, coverage once again was dominated by the cable news networks. It took 14 of the top 15 spots, with CNN taking most of them and MSNBC taking the number 13 and 14 spots. Just for the record, Fox News' highest rated show came in at number 31. Their audience continues to disappear. The top rated non-news shows was MTV's Challenge Double Agent, which came in at number 3. Which was actually surprising that it broke through, that there was an actual regular show that broke through all of the cable news stuff. AEW then came in at 21st, and then Lifetime's Married at First Sight came in at number 22. What's interesting to look at these numbers is that AEW actually beat the NBA, because the NBA on ESPN came in at number 24. So now hopefully that this whole thing is behind us. We won't have to deal with news cycles anymore, and we can get back to see what happens next week on AEW Dynamite, because the last couple of weeks have been really good. We'll be live next week with the fallout from Kenta being there and so much more, and no more news junk to clog things up. So it will be really interesting to see what the numbers are next week. Could AEW get a push to get in that top 5 again? All right, let's get into our social media this week. So Lunar Demon, talking about last week's Dynamite ratings, Edge was a draw 10 years ago. Tony Ace said more like 20. Yikes. Kenny Lee says still can't get 1 million. Weak sauce. I think 1 million will be happening very soon. I think they can hit 1 million potentially, and especially with that Shaquille O'Neal thing. I think maybe that's your shot at 1 million now that the news cycle will kind of die down because of the former WWE Hall of Famer who just keeps causing trouble. Jest says it'll be a mix of both. I'm not really sure what he was talking about. That was from our Dynamite Beach Break results last on the 3rd. Fahim says, talking about our Dynamite results, he says, give rating, not grade. I guess apparently he doesn't like when we're doing... I thought the grading thing would be easier to follow A, B, C, or D rather than this whole number system thing. I was just trying to simplify it, man. I guess he didn't like it. Sorry to hear about that. But I think we're going to keep it for now. Let me know what you think. On to the Twitters, talking about what do you think of Dynamite. Frankie, a bunch of numbers, says, got in late for my son's junior of high school basketball game. Well, that's good that the schools are playing. There's schools that are open, but made it in time for the main event. Lance Archer is a beast. Fantastic match. Love Mox with the potatoes. Kenny really looked hurt tonight. Kenta fit in. Excellent job, guys. All that on a Wednesday night. He gives it a thumbs up. I agree. I thought it was a great match. Archer didn't do his standing there looking at the camera 100 times. He was a beast. That was a great match. It was a lot of fun. The other matches throughout the night were I love the potato thing. That was creative and funny. But overall, it was a fun night of Dynamite. It was a little slow in the beginning, but that final match did the trick for me. I was left happy after that. All right, let's get to our email. Mr. Salty Dog checking in. So, hello, AEW Weekly from Salty Sea Dog. First of all, has MJF already won over the Inner Circle by having Sammy Guevara quit the Inner Circle? I do think he has, but actually I think Sammy and Max are working together. That's interesting. The women's tournament started with Thunder Rosa moving on with the American side of the bracket. I see Riho, Rose, Britt Baker moving on. Then I see Riho winning the American side from there, even though I'd rather see Serena Deeb, Rosa, or Baker win. I wonder if Riho, and she's been wrestling, so she's all right. On Dark, Nick Comoroto is looking like a total beast. I agree with there. I cannot wait till he turns on the Nightmare Family and turns heel. Yeah, he definitely looks like that monster type. Pac needs a title push real soon. He looked awesome on Dark and totally destroyed on Dynamite. I agree there. The main event was very great. Falls Count Anywhere match. I do have to call Kenta out though. He looked like a child in there with everyone else. Interesting. Pay-per-view coming up and no real opponent for Omega yet. Yes, it will probably be a rematch with Moxley, but from this week's main event, I would book Archer as Omega's opponent at Revolution. Interesting. Yeah, maybe that's why this allegiance is coming up. But remember, Lance Archer's not even in the top 5 on that list. I have a feeling you're right. It could be another Mox Omega thing. I don't know if you do that though on a pay-per-view. But what is Mox going to be up to? So that's kind of the question. AEW Fantasy is going great in the AEW Fantasy League. Salty Sea Dog is in first place. And Salty Sea Dog in the Master League is slowly coming up the ranks. Thank you, Mr. Mark, for all your hard work. No problem. Thank you for participating. It's a lot of fun to play AEW Fantasy, and I'm definitely adding more things. I need to fix the draft a little bit. And we've had some kind of weird bug this week with some teams. They're supposed to have 12, and I have to figure out why some have like 9 and some have 11. I'm not really. We did have a little database issue. I think I have a fix for that too. So I got to fix some of that. But yeah, it's been fun. And what we're doing on Pro Wrestling News Hub, as soon as we hear anything about matches, we were always waiting as like a preview of the night before. We do a preview of Dark the day of. Now we're just, as soon as it's released, we put it out there so that fans can go on and adjust lineups and make waiver picks so that they can update their lineups stuff. So it's cool. It's fun. I definitely want to add the Doge element of it. One of the cool things that I added this week was, and I think, I don't know if I mentioned this before, but no, I don't think I did. One of the cool things I did was, when you play fantasy sports and then like there's people that don't play anymore. So the system, what we'll do is pick the best lineup after 2 weeks. If you haven't logged in for 2 weeks, it's going to go in and try to pick the best lineup. It's not going to do waiver pickups, but it's just going to try to pick the best lineup. This way it keeps it competitive because ultimately I want to keep you in the game. And if you signed up and you're playing every week and you're doing waiver pickups and trying to make trades, and then everybody else quits, then you're going to quit because it's not competitive anymore. But if the system can keep track of the player, the wrestlers better and make those lineups better, then that will help. Also, when you do an auto draft, it's now taking the ADP, which is average draft position, into account. So you could technically sign up for an account, sign up for a league, don't draft, and never log in, and the system will actually kind of play for you. So we'll kind of go through the system. So, as a longtime fantasy sports player, basketball, baseball, and NFL, and XFL coming soon to XFL News Hub, I understand. These are pain points that would always frustrate me throughout a season, and I just want to keep you engaged. So we got 3 leagues going right now, and potential 4th coming up, and we're just in beta right now. The site is generic. We're going to clean it up at some point this summer, I think, once I'm comfortable with everything going on. And it should be a lot of fun. So stay tuned for that. And you should stay tuned for something right now, which is Mr. Fourth Row.
It's a go for another phone call there from Mr. Fourth Row. Hey, AEW Weekend Review and Mr. Mark, let's talk about AEW Dynamite that happened this past Wednesday, and specifically of having the Forbidden Door opened and having Kenta show up and wrestle on AEW Dynamite. I actually enjoyed that match a lot. There was a lot of hard hitting and lots of oohs and ahs moments that I just can't believe some of these wrestlers took in that match, and there was so many moving parts, and I thought they did such a great job with that match and having everything that happened in it. And they could just continue from there. What's going to happen next week when all this is going on? So I can't wait to see what happens there. But I'm going to give that, I think that was definitely the match of the night, and I don't think that is unexpected for that to be the match of the night and everything like that. So I'm really enjoying this, and I think they did a great job setting up the matches and all the moving pieces when we have Kenta versus Jon Moxley for the IWG U.S. Championship. So I think that's going to be fantastic when they get that going around and everything. But what does New Japan Wrestling have set up for their upcoming events and everything, and getting this to get some eyes on it? So will we see some casual viewers go from Dynamite to watching New Japan Pro Wrestling when it has John Moxley over there defending that championship? So time will tell to see what happens. But anyways, I enjoyed that. What about all you? And of course, that is always, that is my view, not from the cheap seats, not from the most expensive seats, but from the fourth row.
All right, Mr. Fourth Row checking in. I thought it was a great match. I had a lot of fun watching it, and it really made the night. And I am curious too. I mean, Moxley's facing Kenta at the end of the month. Does Kenta appear on at AEW Revolution? Maybe a rematch of whatever that goes on in New Japan? Is that what's in store? Is Lance Archer going to take on Kenny Omega? Who's taking on Kenny Omega? I don't know if necessarily I want to see Moxley Omega again. Moxley or Omega Archer. What if you did something else? Got like a Jungle Boy in there. Maybe that's it. And that's kind of my question for this week. So we had reaction to Kenta and Moxley. Next week's question is Chris Jericho recently mentioned that he thought that Jungle Boy was the next big star. So what are your thoughts about Jungle Boy? I leave that for next week's show. What do you think? Is Jungle Boy the next big star? My only thing is that he just didn't. You're talking about stars, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Chris Jericho and The Rock and all these guys. They have some kind of mic skill. I just don't think Jungle Boy has the mic skill yet. There's nothing. He's not very compelling talker right now. He's just kind of a chill dude. So I don't know how that's going to go over. So that's a question for next week. Remember, if you want to answer our question or call us, remember it's podcast at Pro Wrestling News Hub with your MP3s. I'll call 888-430-7692 extension 3. Cutoff time is 6 p.m. Eastern on Thursdays. Leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. We'll read it on the show. And remember to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That is the most important thing. You can listen to this show anywhere on podcasts. You can find it anywhere. Show notes, prowrestlingnewshub.com/AEW-podcast. Join us on the Discord, where you can find us on talking about the fantasy wrestling aspect of things. It's on our Discord where I let you guys know everything that I'm working on, what I've updated on, all that good stuff. So it was a good week of wrestling. We'll hopefully get big fans next week. Will be a live show. We'll have no more drama from you know who. Maybe that's all will be over. The news cycle will calm down, and then we can get into some wrestling again. Maybe we'll get some big numbers out there. So I'm excited. So thanks for listening. Mahalo. God bless you all. Stay safe out there. Put that mask on, and we'll be hanging out this summer. I'm feeling very, very good about that. That's it for me, folks, and I will see you all later. God bless.